Levin, if I'm saying your name right, I'm sorry if I'm not.
You got it right.
I've got some stuff to show you. Listen, I don't know if it's worth anything, but I think it's really cool.
This collection is right up my alley because I'm actually a postal historian, not so much a stamp collector. This very first set of envelopes that you have is going to be from stamp dealers, and this is a great sign. I love that all of these are postmarked in the 40s and the 50s, and what it signifies for this collection is that you have somebody that was actually buying from somebody who was a professional dealer rather than just soaking stuff off the mail, which is generally going to be lower value stamps. This receipt of sale you have from 1947 also adds to that, because if somebody was selling $65 worth of stamps to a dealer in 1947, they were a fairly advanced collector and were actually doing business that might justify us having some really good stamps in this collection. I absolutely love this first postcard that you sent me that's going to Paris. We know what era this was sent because that's a very distinctive stamp. That's a Scott number 319, the Washington on Shield, which was issued in 1903 and was generally used sometime before 1906, so you're looking right around the turn of the century for when this was sent to Paris. I love the fold-out nature of this postcard, and to tell you the truth, this is actually a better question for a deltiologist, which is somebody who specifically collects postcards, because the value here is not going to be in the stamp or the cancel that's on it. It's going to be in the type of postcard it is, and although I don't know that market as well as I do know a lot of the other markets, I would say this is probably right around a $30 or $40 postcard because of its ingenuity and the fact that it went to a foreign destination. You also show us these hotel covers from the 20s and 30s, which although not hugely valuable, do have collectible value, and there are folks out there that do specifically collect this type of advertising. My favorite out of all of the covers that you show are these ones right here. This first one is from a paid stamp dealer, and it has this gorgeous illustration of a Danish stamp right on the cover, which is highly collectible. You also have this Army and Navy YMCA, and it's postmark Hawaii 1939, which is even better because that is right before Pearl Harbor and definitely speaks to the time period. This 1907 to Paris is a fairly generic cover, but is a nice foreign destination cover. You also have this whole box of additional postal history, which almost makes my mouth water, but you've pulled out this one right here. This is actually a really interesting example of a postage due cover, and this is the type of thing that makes me think that this collector actually knew what they were doing. What you have here is a postal reply card that has a total of 16 cents applied in postage due notes. Now these are not postage stamps and they cannot be used to mail a letter. So what the post office would do is when somebody sent out a big mailing and then they would have a couple came back that were from say foreign destinations or something of that nature that required additional postage, they would just take the top card off of the pile and add up the postage due for the entire mailing and then put those stamps onto that single card so that the person could go ahead and pay that unpaid postage. You were also wondering if the stamps were right for the period on this postage due cover, and you have a good eye because those stamps were definitely first issued in the 1890s and were actually reissued 4 different times all the way up into the 1930s until it was finally changed over to these other types of postage dues in the 1950s. This postage due cover is definitely at the end of the time period when these postage due stamps would be used, but they are definitely original to the cover. Taking a look at the overall collection, I would say that you don't have the whole thing. To me, this appears to be the postal history portion of a collection of somebody who may had a much wider collection, and probably you have an album or two sitting around and maybe all of the other stuff that goes along with collections that we see. Now the postal history that you do have, I didn't see anything that was outrageously expensive or absolutely incredible, but there is a lot of evidence there that this collector was knowledgeable, and it definitely would be worth your time if you ever do decide to sell this to have somebody who knows postal history well to page through there, because you may have a hidden gem or two based on the condition and the quality of the other items that are in your collection. If you come up with anything else from this collector, be sure and contact me because I'd love to see it. And as always, if you like these videos and you'd like to see more of them, make sure you shoot one of your stamp collection and submit it to me.